The backlash. Let me focus on the backlash because I think it's a very important thing politically speaking. In Argentina, at least, and many Latin American countries, the freedom of information agenda bloomed after a lot of corruption scandals. So in the region, freedom of information is extremely linked to transparency and anti-corruption. What is a good thing? I mean, we kind of took advantage of that agenda because the corruption agenda it was very strong in the 90s in the region. I mean, Fujimori, PRI in Mexico, Menem in Argentina. So it was easy to free ride on that agenda. But what the problem by doing that, is that the reaction among governments who call themselves transparent and non-corrupt is that we don't need this. I mean, we are not that kind of governments. So that's one backlash that we have to be aware of in terms of a strategy. The second one is success. I mean, if we are successful, I was listening to Arian Ayer in these two cases. I was thinking, oh, maybe we can write an article on these two cases to push the issue in Argentina. But of course, I mean, the government will be very much afraid of that's what will going to happen to me if we pass the. But I mean, but it's already there. I mean, we are already in the situation that we have to discuss this openly, and of course the backlash is a possibility, but we have to work with it.
Natasa, have you felt any pressure as a result of the financial crisis or the current climate to push back? What has the pushback from the government been in your experience?
There are always tensions, to go back, especially nowadays. The danger that I see is so-called private-public partnership. This is like the fashion in Europe now, so the private companies can cooperate with public sector. And we recently adopted the law, a public-private partnership law, and there was an article that the FOI is excluded from this law. And when I saw that article, luckily it was before it was adopted in the parliament. I mean, I got mad. I went to the minister and I said, I mean, exclusions are never good for the FOI. Once you have it in one law, you can have it in 400 laws. This is what happened actually in Denmark. I don't know if you know, but Danish FOI system is a puzzle. They enacted the law, I think, in 1982, but since then they changed the FOI in many other laws. I think there are honestly around 400 different laws and different exemptions in those laws, and nobody knows what the FOI regime in Denmark is all about. They will have to draft the law from the 0 point, if you ask me. And one of the tasks of the information commissioners around Europe and the world, in my opinion, also is to follow the legislation process, to see what the government is planning to do with the FOI system. And in Slovenia, in the last 5 years, there were around 5 or 6 laws where the government tried to exclude the FOI from a certain law, but I was always lucky enough to persuade the government not to do it. I don't know whether I'll be, successful in the future, but I will try to do the same job.
Mm-hmm. And Helen, can I ask you, what in your view are the biggest challenges to the FOI movement now?
Okay. I think in terms of the, one challenge is the sort of possible backlashes against success. As with any other right, and particularly a right which is really, in many senses, still a young right, just really being properly recognized, it's inevitable that once governments realize what they've done in adopting these access to information laws, I mean, it's all very well, like in Central and Eastern Europe using the EU integration process, or in other countries, it's on the World Bank, tick this box, adopt an access to information law. And only when people start using it do governments really realize the implications and try to start finding craftier ways to withhold information. So that's inevitable, and that's part of the work of civil society in defending any right, including this right. I think the other challenge that we're facing right now at this moment in the world, however, comes from some of the sort of global circumstances in which we find ourselves. We've already seen it in the post-9/11 world with the increase of emphasis on the need for security and the need to keep information secret in the interests of protecting our security. And it was interesting, I was listening last night to people talking about the results coming in from the European Parliament. And the successes of parties who are on a platform of financial stability, protecting security, concerns about immigration, concerns about climate change. These are concerns which are being used to justify restrictions on access to information and not only not with the withholding of information that people have requested, but taking decisions in secret, decisions that have been taken about measures which are deemed necessary to protect ourselves against terrorist threats, including a number of the measures about retention of data, exchange of anyone who flies across the Atlantic. A number of fields of data get exchanged.
42 personal data.
42 fields of personal data. The decision-making on that partly has been done with informal and secret letters between the European Union and the United States government. When you go to check in and you're not allowed to take liquids or a penknife or whatever it may be, between 2002 and 2008, that regulation was secret. It's the first and, to my knowledge, the only so far case in Europe in recent time, including Western Europe, of a law which we all have to comply with being adopted, but the members of the public not being able to know what the law says. That's actually now been struck down by the European Court of Justice because a gentleman was not allowed to take his tennis rackets on the plane, and he went to court to find out if tennis rackets were on the prohibited list. And eventually it turned out that they weren't, and the European Court of Justice annulled the law. So a new law was adopted, which is a public ruling, and Natasa and I both travel with copies of it. If your penknife is less than 6 centimeters long, they shouldn't have confiscated it.
We all travel a lot. Can you hand those out?
Yeah, I keep handing out
It's
copies.
fun, you know, when security guys do not know anything about this regulation, and when they want to confiscate small Caesars from my hand luggage, I say, hey, sorry guys, do you know the regulation? Yes, all the sharp objects have to be removed from, the hand luggage. I said, no, it's not true. Here's the regulation. Read it, and it's so much fun.
It is kind of fun, and I've done the same. But at the same time, for me, this is one of the most worrying developments that we've had. And if this is a signal of things to come, where a number of different measures have been taken, and people are accepting them because they are concerned about their security, because they are concerned about the economic crisis, because they are concerned about climate change, they are concerned about immigration. And the media and politicians with a sort of populist approach are fomenting these concerns. There is a huge risk that that's going to justify increasing secrecy, and that we're going to lose some of the gains we've made with the right of access to information. And that's something that we need to be on our guard against. And we need to inform ourselves. We need to ask, what is the law? What are the rules? Are these measures really justified? What's the evidence that these measures are justified? And we need to use the right of access to information to defend our civil liberties. And that's the challenge for me for access to information these days.
There are two major challenges. One, we were working for a long time on passing laws, which is crucial.
Yeah.
I think I completely agree, and I was working on it. It's crucial. It's the tool, it's the weapon we have. I mean, without the law, it's so easy for public officials to get out or to get away without providing information. But we have two, I think, major challenges in terms of agenda for the future, even having laws passed. What I already mentioned is how to make civil society aware of their rights, and how to make them, to claim for information, how to make people request information. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that, every single person will be, spending time in requesting information. But I think that there are so many people, and activists and professionals and academicians and journalists who are not still aware of their rights. And we need to create that demand. And on the other side, we all know that governments cannot provide information without having an infrastructure. I mean, in terms of bureaucracy, in terms of knowledge, training. So how to create that capacity within the government is another very important challenge. Because we all know, we all think that by passing the law, we will trigger that kind of capacity in the government, because the government is compelled to provide information, so they will organize themselves, they will have... it's true that there's an incentive for governments to do that, but still we need to work on that side. So how to create government's capacity and how to create demand, I think that are the two major challenges for the future.